Call the
We don't have
July
to pledge again.
15th meeting to order.
Yeah.
First on the agenda is review and approval of the agenda, posted agenda. Joan moves. Second. I'll second. All in favor of the posted agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda approved. Moving on to consent items. We'll take all three at once.
So moved.
Second. All in favor of consent items, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consent items approved. Board members forum. Paul, go ahead.
The fair, biggest thing, they went great. Secondly, there was also a Maple Lake Improvement District meeting on Saturday. Well, for some reason, I was very busy when that happened, and I missed it. But I talked to her yesterday for about a half hour, and they have a meeting coming up in August. I'll get to that one, make sure that we touch base with them. That's all I got.
Okay. Warren?
A couple things. I had radio board meeting. That's by Zoom. And about 20 minutes into it, I get the notice on my laptop that they're going to do a system update. And it took over my computer for the whole time, so I ended up having to go on my personal computer to sit in and watch. I don't have much to contribute to that board meeting at all, and we have, professional people on the tech part of it, so I don't miss much there. Pine Drug Task Force, that was on Thursday. Issue there was that in the budget cuts at the state level, it'll be about a cut from about 1%. It'll amount to about $100 a month. So it goes down from 4,800 down to 47, but that's money that's used to basically pay the difference in the salary bit. Then corrections on Monday, yesterday, 149 in the jail. That's up a little bit. The average for the month was 147, but like I said, June numbers are up over the spring and such. Of that group, there were 11 in the ICE category, and they paid in per diems $25,650. Department of Corrections had 15, and they paid $24,300. Marshal Service had 24, and that's another $66,044. That was for 2 months, I believe. And of course, of the 149 number, Polk County had 68 inmates, Red Lake 4, Norman 4. The total intake from per diem income from the jail side was 174,000, which is up considerably. 62 per diem inmates. Juvenile Center had 3 in secure and 5 in non-secure, and they had income of 73,000. So it was almost $250,000 in income there. It's up, and I don't suppose that's number going to be too solid going forward, but for that 1 month, it's really up there. 58 new probation cases and closed 64. And now there's, as far as the employment there are 2 openings in the correction center, unfilled positions, and 1 in juvenile center. There are people in the process of being approved, so they'll be at full staff or close to it for some time, which is much improved over what's happened in the past. The Drug Task Force grant fund, it's got $33,346 in it now. And that's all we had. The group with meeting with the Marshall Polk people. Chuck and I, and I'll let Chuck respond to that, because we're going to try to develop a memorandum that will cover the differences in district uh, lines.
Okay.
But that's enough from me.
I want to add one thing about Jody did an excellent presentation, Jody Beauchesne, at the fair about the emergency management thing. I think we all got that in our email too. The you'll see it. I got it anyhow. Maybe not
I
everybody,
didn't get it. I don't remember.
but then he had the whole outline and everything there that was superb
Mm.
for the fair, the emergency action plan for the different.
Good to get information out.
Yeah, it's first time we've had it. We've
Yeah.
always had something, but it's. But
Mhm.
anyhow, that's all I got.
Okay. Gary.
Wednesday, I was invited out to the University of Minnesota Kirkland campus to meet with the university regents. They kind of cycle out every 3 or 4 years on individual campuses as a group anyway, and have their meetings. And Friday, public health with Sarah Reese, and she talked a little bit about the changes in revenue from federal and state. Better than she had thought, but still about a 2% loss. County Fair, despite the Canadian smoke, I enjoyed it. Enjoyed my 4-H green mint malt, and many of the exhibits are always my favorite. Monday then with corrections, it was nice to see the per diems increased, and possibility that they may also here throughout the summer season, and also to see that staffing is good. And then Thursday, in a couple of days here, I head down to Moorhead for the Laurel. That's a regional library meeting. So more updates on the budget that time. That's it.
Okay. Joan.
I had the full MAFPA CWDA work group. It was mainly each individual work group out of the large one gave a report on what they've been working on and things that still need to get done. I think it's still going to be a challenge to get everything taken care of to have a full rollout in January of 2027. Still a lot of information that is lacking. And then I went over to East Grand Forks to the Family Resource Center and met with Senator Smith's working there, her office staff, and it was a good conversation. And then let's see, I had drug task force, and one of the things that we talked about there was bringing in Lake of the Woods, and then just kind of whether their associate members or voting members, and there was kind of a lot of discussion on that, and I think we've come to a good consensus on that going forward, because that kind of needs to be decided on before we do the grant application, because that'll determine how many units that the grant needs to be split between. And then that Thursday evening, I once again judged the talent show at the fair. It's always a good time. We only had 5 entries this year, but good variety. And there's a lot of talent out there. And then, like Gary mentioned, we have public health. We had kind of a presentation from some of the people who do the family home visiting. So that was, interesting of what they do and how they go about those things.
I work with first-time mothers. Was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yep. And then, like for the number of births that they've had coming out of those home visiting and just the continued support for these mothers, going forward. And, like, it's kind of interesting with the percentages. Because they had 36% of the clients are ages 19 and under, and 64% are 20 years older. So that's, it's still a large number of, young teens that are, finding themselves pregnant. And then kind of like with some of those mothers, their, mental health concerns are still really, the depression and anxiety. And I mean, depression is definitely something that is very common during pregnancy with all the hormone changes and stuff. And then I had our small math forward group, our phase in, and we had some questions that, well, like Ramsey and Hennepin County as the phase in, they've been making a list of questions as they're going forward, and they've been trying to get answers to these questions from DCYF since November of 24, and still, there's a lot of things that they're not getting responses on. But we spent a lot of time discussing case review, and we're trying to push that the state takes care of the case review, because then it's going to be consistent versus, one county does it this way, another county does it a different way, just to make that accountability, easier in step 2. But there's a issue with the SSIS software program now, because they're not going to be able to pull some of the data that this new law requires. And then also just the time that it will take to complete each review. And, is it going to be each case that has to be reviewed, or is it going to be percentage? So, there's just a lot of issues and questions there. And we were supposed to have a report due now the end of July, but they asked for an extension, and that's been extended till August 31st. So, I mean, we're just getting started, and already we're looking at doing extensions on required reports. So, more to come. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I attended the redetermination meetings that were held in Euclid. Warren was at the East Grand Forks one. They went very well. 2 takeaways. The Euclid one was probably a little bit more concerning about drainage, because most of the people that were in attendance were east of 75. East Grand Forks was primarily people, primarily from the outlet ends of a lot of the drainage ditches. A lot of questions, good presentation by Brian Murphy, explains the process very well. The county will have to, the board will have to make up our mind probably sometime August, or maybe even next meeting, on if the county goes forward. I'm in favor of redetermination, but the caveat is we know how much his fees are going to be. We don't know, the caveat is we don't know how on an individual drainage system that will add to somebody's tax bill. and to get money back in the maintenance accounts. I said at the meetings, and I'll say it again here publicly, over the years, I think the county, not so much this board, but over the years, the county has been very lax in ditch maintenance. When we had Jody Beauchesne, he was very well respected, very well a good friend to the ditch owners and so forth and so on. And since we've lost Jody, it's concerning. Polk County has 750 some miles of county ditches. The combination of watershed ditches in this county are less than 200. And combined, those watershed districts have a big budget. And we have no budget for Rich. He has no ditch inspector. He has nobody to help assist him. And during the budget time, I'm going to try to make the argument we got to rethink how we go forward with these ditches. Talking to people at the meetings, that's been one of the biggest gripes from the taxpayer, especially in the agricultural community. They understand the escalation of idiots that are paying big dollars for property. But what they don't understand is why the county keeps raising taxes when the ditches are in such disrepair. And a lot of these ditches have been built back in the 30s and 40s, never been redetermined. And as I said in both meetings, that should be done every 15 to 20 years to help the ditch funds accumulate more money and so forth and so on. So I'm in favor of the redetermination, but the caveats are, how much is it going to cost the taxpayer down the road once the project is done? And that's going to be up to the board where that levy is placed, and also, do we bill it in the first year, or do we the taxpayers always have the right to pay it off initially, but the cost of the redetermination. But I think consideration needs to be, what do we do? Do we give them time to pay it off, let's say 10 years or 5 years or whatever? I think those are all considerations that need to come forward as we walk down that path. On a personal note, you all know I've been doctoring a lot. I've been in the Mayo ER twice, and at the conclusion of today's meeting, I'm stepping down this chair. Get my poop together. I've got 4 herniated discs in my neck that are affecting me real bad. I've had gastric problems for over 3 months, and nobody locally will touch me trying to get into Rochester. So I'm going to be gone a fair amount. And to top it off, during all the testing, I've developed ALS. And starting that road, I want to be around to see redetermination. Get it completed. Because it's important to get these ditch systems so everybody that's using these dang ditch systems to start paying. Because those of us that are on the outlet end, we can have a beautiful 1-inch rain, and 7 days later, we're flooded out because of the elevation and the way the water comes from the East Country. It's a mess. And that's where I want to be around to see that through and a few other things. At this time, I'm not resigning, but I got to talk to Chuck and Sam what the process would be. I have good days, bad days, and I'll be in touch with. I know the next week I'm gone back to Rochester. I may have to be back on the 1st of August, don't know yet. And if nothing else, if I'm having a bad day, I'll Zoom. But my strength is I don't have the fastest ALS, but I'm in the mid-range so far. But it's been very hard on me and my family. That all being said, if you please could, my resignation, put that in the press if you want to, but the personal stuff, please respect. Yeah, yeah,
Stepping down as chair, not as commissioner.
so out of respect to, I know there were some contracts that needed to be signed when I was gone and so forth and so on, and I just didn't have the energy or the fortitude to get them signed, so appreciate that. It's been a fun group and I enjoy all of you, and I enjoyed my time on the board, so. Moving on,
Well, the best for sure.
thank you. Karen,
Good morning,
Good morning to you.
Commissioner Holy. I just want to thank you for your service here. You've done a great job as a commissioner, and I've appreciated you as part of our team here.
thank you,
Wish you and your family the best.
thank you.
I have one agenda item today. It's a family-based service provider replacement request. We had a resignation in our family-based service provider team, and I'm requesting board approval to fill the family-based service provider position and to fill any internal subsequent position vacancies occurring because of this action.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Replacement request granted.
Thank you.
Sheriff Slate,
Should be here momentarily.
I see the Snyder time is canceled.
Yeah, that was the applicants doing.
Sam, you want to do yours quick?
So my agenda item is very similar to Karen's. Due to a resignation, I'm seeking authorization to fill a vacant appraiser position in the assessor's office.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Right now, on that, we're not quite sure. We haven't figured out the timing of when we're gonna post or open that just due to the timing of the year with where the staff's at on their going out and viewing properties and everything like that. So I'm working with Mark Landsberg to see when and where we're going to do that.
It wasn't him that resigned.
No, it was one of the staff appraisers.
Good.
Which one?
Amanda Magra.
I don't know if I know her.
She was relatively new it was her first year. She was just coming up on completing her first year.
Oh, yeah.
She was in the license center before.
Oh,
And on the license center news, kill some time here. We're expecting a new baby soon.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Kendall Wachowski is
Oh, that's right.
out
Yeah.
and out for a little bit. You got any other questions or anything for me?
Thanks.
Thank you.
You want me to fill in?
Sure.
Sure. See Greg yet? Or Greg, Jim. I'm gonna echo Karen's comments to Mr. Chair, Mark. Feel for you. But we're here for you if you, whatever we can do. Just an update, Warren mentioned that he and I met with Polk County's 3 representatives on the Marshall Polk rural water system, kind of a follow-up to the meeting 2 weeks ago. Kind of a cut to the chase here. We ended up discussing kind of leaving the meeting with that group, looking for assurance from this group that there would be some acknowledgement, perhaps support for some of the service expansions that they may already have started some plans on. My initial thought to that is it's probably not much of an issue, assuming that a lot of that's going to be probably Crookston and north rather than south. I suspect it'd be very little problem for West Central to look at that. There is a process, of course, for expanding a district. That's the 116A process. And how many of those projects are 116A ready for engineering feasibility? So a couple things. The director from Marshall Polk was there as well, Jason Hillman, and he was going to follow up in Marshall County for whatever the court records are for the history of that district's project expansions. They don't seem to know exactly where their line is. That's been court approved over the last, 4 or 5 decades. Understandable. So in fact, I'm doing some emailing here this morning, as sometimes those records can be a little elusive. County Attorney Widseth had gone up there and was able to find them, but that took a little bit of hunting. So we'll try to get Jason to the right folks there. It is possible that I suspect that some minor expansions may have happened without the 116A process. Again, I don't think that's going to be an issue as far as West Central is concerned, but just that line, wherever it is, be good to have that cleared up. I didn't hear anything from the meeting to suggest that what this board has approved for territory or a line needs to be addressed at this point, but suggested that perhaps a resolution from Polk County that would help assure Marshall Polk that of a way to bring forward their future plans and kind of act as an intermediary between the two districts might be in order. I did draft something up and had Greg look at it, sharing it with Jason from Marshall Polk. They'll just look at it. It's kind of a draft. They meet tonight, assuming that if it looks like it's in the right direction, maybe even have it back here before this group next Tuesday. Part of it would be that they agree to the MOU with the West Central group because there's obviously some future need for some collaboration between the two. And I suspect there'll be even more discussions about mutual support, as that tends to be part of the 116A process anyway, or at least the checking with other water providers in the region. So I thought it was pretty good. A meeting at Warren, you were there. I don't know if you had anything else
No,
to add to that.
just a soft border off the line is all I've been endorsing right from the beginning. Whoever can serve, serve. And that's, both districts are in my commissioner district. And I could care less which one serves anybody as long as they have that opportunity.
I think the biggest concern on the map area is the MOU and the way it was presented to Marshall County previously, or Marshall Polk Water previously. It stated in there, I forget how it was worded, non-binding, which they were a little bit, more than a little bit, kind of very concerned on the legal aspects of that. And I think you're right, Warren, whoever can get service there the quickest and fastest, that's what should happen. But unfortunately, over time, you'll be gone, I'll be gone, Paul will be gone, Chuck will be gone. Whoever else is on those boards and commissions will look at that map and say, no, this is the map that the county board approved back in 23, and that's the service area. And that's where I've always had the problems with that map is that segment up there and some of the segment south of Crookston. And I think the representatives from Marshall Polk said they have no interest once their negotiations with Climax ceased and the county gave Climax money. They pulled their intent back and said what County Road 41 was the southern edge of their district. So I respect what they're saying. I think we got two conditions. One, you got a very passive organization in Marshall Polk, and you got a very aggressive engineer and legal team and board on West Central. And they need to be in the formation, but I think it affects Marshall Polk negatively with that map. And I would also request, Gary's gone next meeting, I know I'm gone. If we could postpone that MOU or whatever will come forward till the August, 1 meeting?
August 5th.
Yeah,
Fifth.
5th.
Well, yeah, it's still a draft, and I figured I may as well at least know that they would be okay with it. They don't have any voting on the resolution, but
No.
rather than just say, here it is, see if the content of it affects how they view things. Because I think they're the ones looking for the assurance that they could come here for support.
I think it sounds like we made good headway here with this last meeting. Compared to when they showed up here, it was like that was a good discussion. Apparently you guys had a great discussion there. And in your absence, I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I poised that during our discussions. Maybe not as eloquently as you do, but we're all on the same page, and it sounds like you've made good ground at this last meeting, because there was zero ground before there, very little ground before that.
Well, going to kind of what the chair said about, I don't know if I'd characterize them as passive, but it's kind of interesting. They're already an active water district.
Yes.
Yep.
They have trucks and staff and pipelines and stuff like that. They've been doing this since 1970. The other group doesn't have anything.
Right.
They're not even legal. But the problem that the West Central group has is, to your point, they have to go by statute. And, for a few of us that have gone to all the meetings, when it came time to have a map, their initial map really was pretty much that south of 41 area. The discussion here, because we had to adopt a resolution, is, well, why would we want to leave anybody out?
No.
Now, that came up in the discussion as well. Nobody asked Marshall Polk, and maybe that's true. I mean, I was involved in it. I remember talking to Jason about the map. You are a user and know everybody, and of course, this group appoints guys to that board. But you know, it was raised at the meeting that the thought was this is all coming out of the West Central group, which was like somebody else. And I'm like, no, that part was actually right here. Whether it was me, whether it was Warren, Mark, whomever was the county board, and part of it was, to your point, whoever can service is the actual intent here of this group. And I think that assurance in writing through a resolution, which again, a resolution can be changed. So I mean, this is not a law, but it is the policy. And frankly, as a practical matter, it will be this group that is deciding to okay or not okay various changes to a district. The fact that the rest of the county that is not currently in Marshall Polk would be in West Central does kind of make it lean against Marshall Polk, that they're the ones that'll be coming to the board. However, most of the area is going to be something that they can service well before West Central. And I do think that there will be conversations between those two groups about how best to service and back up each other. And I did remind the group there, and that the county did do something with Climax, but it was county money, with the idea that more than just Climax would be serviced by this water line. And there's nothing that precludes Marshall Polk from approaching Climax
To get water.
Exactly. And but I work for the county. I don't work for a water district. So that's kind of between them. And I don't want to speak for Climax either. But I think if the question came up to this board, I don't know what other position you would take. It was county money for the county, not just for Climax or something south of 41.
Or that it wasn't paid to West Central. I think that was kind of the misunderstanding, that they thought that we had paid the money to, you know, the water district, which doesn't exist yet, you know, and I think too that they were concerned about our, you know, continued involvement with the board, you know, after it once, you know, actually does become official, and just, you know, making them realize we'll step back from the West Central, just like, you know, the Marshall Polk. And so I think that they just had the feeling that we were playing favorites.
Yeah, they might have had that feeling.
Hmm.
I don't feel that that was the intent. To Joan's point, some of the points are valid, but your first comment about favorites, they were fully aware of, because they had been in negotiations twice with Climax for 800 and some thousand, and I think most recently 1 or 1.1 to get water to the city of Climax, and the city of Climax did not move. And then when the ARP money came available, engineer caught on, and hey, here's an application, was my motions. And I actually, before I even made the motions, contacted Marshall Polk. Do you need any money for expansion or anything? No, we're sitting good. And I told them what's going on. Yeah, we've tried negotiating with Climax, and they won't sign a contract. So I think the biggest contention is the strip north of Crookston, and also around Crookston, primarily down to County Road 41. That's always been, when you go back and look at the original service area filed under the 116A back in the 70s, that was their original application. And yeah, that's expired now, but all indications are that was their original territory. And their biggest concern is, from what I gather, is once that court says this is the service area, and if we don't do something with whoever can get water there the most economically and cheapest, we'll call it the DMZ area. And maybe that's a way to approach it, is itemize out that area in contention and say, the county board says, this is what we respect what Marshall Polk is doing. Whoever can get water there closest and south of 41 is West Central's. I have no problem with that. But like I said earlier, 10 years down the road, all the names and faces will change. And if there's ever a tug of war over turf, even on the Marshall Polk Water Board, there's going to be turnover. And the court is going to look at whatever Polk County agreed to and say, that's a service area. And that's my concern. So,
Well, I do think it's healthy to keep in mind that this board appoints 3 members to Marshall Polk, 4 members to West Central.
Yep.
I mean, the opportunity for resolution is just sitting right here. If it ever got that bad, there'd be something else going on, because it's the same people. And I think that no matter where the line is, this is the issue. I mean, it's like, well, when does this happen? Or if there was a DMZ, okay, now you're telling some residents you're not in either district. I don't know that it would, I don't want to say it, I don't know that it would matter much. I think you'd end up with the same one group is going to approach this board and say, we need your blessing to proceed through the 116A process. Well, I don't think that's any different than just modifying the line. The one of the realities I think for Marshall Polk is they have to figure out where their actual line is, and they admit that they're not sure. Well, they haven't had to worry about that for probably 40 years, maybe longer. But it's doable, and I think it'll end up being kind of a model for going forward as to what this board does in Marshall Polk and West Central for adjusting the line to reflect reality if it's different. And if you look at the maps that they gave you, there's actually an area in Parnell that looks like it's it's flipped, that something there needs to be addressed. And I know they know about it, and I know West Central knows about it. Does it need to get cleaned up? I don't think so until after the court process is done and you actually got a second water district. Then you can formally fix all the little changes, and if they bring us a list of the contemplated projects, and I don't expect that to mean, well, we're all going to gully, because some of this has got to be realistic. It's got to be ready and engineered for actual feasibility, like the other group has to do. But I think there's actually a lot of flexibility there.
One last comment, and it goes back to the passive and aggressive comment that I made earlier. It's not that Marshall Polk is so passive. They have in their bylaws, all of us users would help pay for whatever line, a 6-inch or an 8-inch, gets run to the new user. So their process is much different than West Central's as far as getting approved. Ultimately, West Central, the users are going to have to absorb all that. But currently, today, they have no money, they have no end users yet, and Marshall Polk does, according to their bylaws, have to stick to a very strict formulation and not run 8-inch line all over East Polk County and West Red Lake and Pennington. So they have to be a little bit more conservative in their approach to expansion. So,
and keep in mind, I don't want to say we forget this, but it's key. It still depends on people wanting the water, whether that's a city with a water tower, a lakes district, a business that needs it for whatever reason. Those folks are the ones that actually will decide we want it. And there's both groups have the dots on the maps of, hey, yeah, we're interested. And I think that there'll probably be people sitting, where is it practical to put a line, and who gets the service, and what would you do? Why don't you take this area? Why don't you take that? Whatever, But by that time, whatever comes to the board, one would assume, following the MOU between the two groups, for here, it's almost a rubber stamp. If it's not, then, well, you can just make a decision.
Little side note here, they thought that Marshall Polk might, get water from the Climax pipe makes a lot of sense, because one of the things that Jason said the other day was that their line at the south end is down to 1.5 inches. You can't serve a whole lot of people with that. You'd have to expand the line or bring it in from somewhere else to make it work. So there's, like I say, whoever can do it best and
Mhm.
let them have it.
Has been pointed out many times by the East Central Rural Water guy, Neil,
Yeah.
remembers that Breitenbach is his last name. All those systems on the North Dakota side eventually all get connected.
Mhm.
They're still their own groups, but they all get connected
Yeah.
for whether it's flow or backup or we got to do maintenance, we got to
Mhm.
shut down, we like to get you water, I it's interesting, um, and it sounds like it's also catching on around the state of Minnesota that there might be 4 or 5 other
Mhm.
water districts being contemplated.
Yeah.
So
And they're gonna have the same issues we're having.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. If there has to be a defined district, I don't like that. It's just,
Well, yeah, and I mean, like, if the problem that we have is because there's already a district that's formed. If
Exactly.
there was none within, we wouldn't have an issue. But just, I mean, this is an off the wall thought, but would Marshall Polk be interested in contacting Red Lake County? Because there's been a lot of issues there with, because irrigation is really increased. And there's been a lot of issues with individual wells going dry and having to dig new wells.
I, I'm a believer in staying in my lane.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a Marshall Polk.
Yeah, but
thinking,
just
if you look at a map, I mean, there's all sorts of advantages that they have just from their geography
Mhm.
relative to the advantages of West Central.
Mhm.
We just kind of are unique in that we've got about half the county in one district and about half the county in another. But the most of the water service territories are done by cities, towns,
Mhm.
and West Central is really looking at this as point to point. They call it their postage stamp approach for developing a fee system because they have to come up with something, and to get to an area that already has service and users is really kind of the part of their build. It doesn't. You think about it, it doesn't make a lot of sense just to start running lines because where are you going?
Right.
And eventually they got to loop these things to keep the water circulating.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but so rural areas in Red Lake County may still be, as a practical matter, getting to Red Lake, the city of Red Lake itself, Red Lake Falls,
Mhm.
in order to go beyond that. But
Mhm.
that's kind of what I'm seeing on the West Central group is they're talking about Felton, they're talking about Halstead, or
Mhm.
how do you get a line there? We talk climax, get it to Neilsville so you can get it to Beltrami, not so you can get it to
Our plan is kind of sitting pretty decent. They're the ones that are trying to establish, we kind of know where we're going with from climax.
Mhm.
yeah, we gotta be careful when we
I
say
agree.
we. Who's we?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Polk
That's
County
right.
is we.
Polk
but,
County is we. That's what I'm
West
talking
Central.
about. West Central. Yes.
So I told Jason if you need me tonight at their meeting, I'd go, but I don't think he does. They'll have their talk and they'll
Sure.
let me know, and we'll just keep plodding through this. And
Great.
still don't exactly know what the time schedule is with the court down in Clay
Yeah,
County,
we still
but
don't know that.
that the I think some of the objective for West Central is to avoid conflict with Marshall Polk
Mhm.
by the time it
We get there.
anoint the district's formation. It may actually be easier once they're a district to be doing some of this stuff.
Good conversation.
Mhm.
I don't know where our sheriff is. But-
There's something going on
Oh.
over here. I don't know if they had to get involved.
This just in. But remember Stacy, she keeps coming back.
Yep.
And,
Well, that's a good sign.
Coming back.
Still here.
Does she leave?
one of the
Does
first
she-
things I check when I come
Does
in
she
the
leave
morning.
between days?
Some days, yeah.
Yeah.
I
But-
have a stop time.
Good.
Neither one of us really had anything for the packet, but it seemed like a good day just to give you general updates. I don't like having just updates, but that's what we have right now. We're in the middle of so many things that
Get out of her chair.
yeah. Ms. Grover.
Hello, everybody.
Right.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a whirlwind of another month here. I'm going to share a couple things with you, and I'm going to send a couple of these back here. I did add a couple pages to it, and then I'm going to hand these out to you guys. I'm going to do 2 this way, and I'll do 3 that way. And I think I had, I think I had sent a agenda sheet, but we're gonna focus on one part of it. So, in the last month, I'll just give you a quick general view. We have, as of this last Thursday, implemented Questica, which is our budgeting software. And we're working through some kinks and stuff with that, which is to be expected as with anything. And we're getting better at using it, which is also part of it. I'm excited to bring that. I think we'll see that when we meet with the board in August. I'm looking back. Sorry. Just to confirm in my head the budget calendar, I think we bring it to the finance committee first. So I'm excited to bring that to you and to the committee. We're going to be working on a consistent format and consistent documentation, and we've got some other good things coming. So I think you're going to like it. Once we work through that, we've got payroll going, implementation. We're working with our groups on that, is also progressing with the deadline of October, first payroll in October to be live in the new system, which is a pretty significant push to implement a payroll changeover in that amount of time, but we're working on that. And then we also have Questica, UKG. What am I missing? I feel like I'm missing one.
There's
Oh, thank you.
part of it is kind of a build out of Kronos that we already have
Yep.
for hiring process, the advertising, and just keeping track of
Recruitment.
recruitment.
Onboarding, which is really great too, because it'll be much more seamless. So the goal of payroll is when you once you start running payroll, you just want to run seamless. You don't want to have to stop, because every time you have to stop and recalculate and do something manually, one, you are stopping the process and you're wasting time and effort. It takes time and effort to do that. 2, you can make errors when you're doing manual entries. So really where we're trying to get to and moving forward is when we're looking at the project is where do we want to be? What do we want payroll to look like? We need to understand what it looks like now, and then how do we build it in the new system so that it is as seamless as we can, from the point of the employees entering their time to the department heads approving their time, and then how that gets into payroll. And a lot of that also starts on the HR side, because that HR side starts the employee onboarding and they determine the benefits and the deductions and how we get all of those steps through. And we're really looking at bringing that in so it is as seamless as possible. There will always be those one-time anomaly, maybe a manual sheet that we have to enter in because it's a one-time per year person that we can't get into a timekeeping system. It doesn't make sense, like an election worker, for example. But ultimately, when we run, the goal is to run all the way straight through, start to finish, without having to stop the process. And so we're working on that. But to the other bigger piece of it coming up in the next few weeks is we were working on budgets. And I think I had mentioned the last time, kind of starting to work towards changing how we talk about our budgets and our fund balances. So I think I had mentioned in the past, my role is to help Chuck pull all the budget information in, but a large part of my role is based on our audit and our actual financials. So the only true audit figure I have right now is from 2023. So when we budget, we are going to budget and then we're going to pull in and we're going to talk about fund balance. And not fund balance as a whole. So a couple things, and we'll bring these forward as we come through the next few months. The audit, we're still waiting for the final date for the audit, but we're hoping here soon we will find out and keeping it in July with the goal of having a final audit in September so that when we start bringing back and truly looking at our budgets, we're tying in those fund balances, okay? Couple things. There is fund balance reporting, and I'm not sure how much this has been talked about in the past, but there are different types of fund balances. And so this first sheet is just fund balance reporting. I want you to have this sheet because this is from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, Statement 54. As a county, or any government entity, actually, we are required to have a fund balance policy. And we will, again, talk about that in the coming months. But this explains a little bit, gives you an example, some examples of what each of those fund balance classifications are. And then the next piece of that is kind of understanding the difference in the roles that a budget plays versus a fund balance versus cash balances. And so again, I've just kind of taken a snapshot out of another handbook to kind of put it out there in front of you to kind of look at of what the differences are. So we're going to build a budget, and budget is going to be based on our day-to-day operating. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take that budget, and then I'm going to come back to this kind of this balance sheet that I've given to you. And I just focused on the general fund for right now, but at the very bottom you can see I circled there is a total fund balance under the general column of 10.7 million. That fund balance is broken out in between non-spendable at 1.6 million, restricted 1.1 million, committed 529,000, 530,000 call it, and unassigned at 7.4 million. We're going to tie your budgets, and we're going to come back, and when we get the 24 budget, we're going to come back and we're going to lay out the budget. We're going to have the fund balance beginning, we're going to have the budget, net impacts to those fund balances, and what we project your ending fund balance to be. And then those are our talking points, and kind of back to Chuck's direction on making sure we understand when we say we're expending over revenue, what that does to your fund balance, and making sure we're pulling it out of the correct fund balance. So there's intentional spending, excess spending, and there's unintentional. So we want to make sure that when we talk about things, that we're talking about that fund balance. The other important thing, and I'm kind of a stickler on this, your fund balance is a projection and statement in time, and the true fund balance is your audited fund balance. That is the only actual fund balance that there is. So for me right now, I cannot tell you what our fund balances are across all of the departments because I do not have that established. As we start building the templates and working forward, I should be able to help project out as we start looking at 2-year and 3-year where that goes. But overall, my responsibility is across all the departments, bringing in all of the information and tying out to those fund balance so that the departments are feeding the information in. Chuck is having discussions, agreeing to what's going to be in there, and then I'm tying it out so that Chuck has good financial information to make decisions that he brings back to the board. Does that make sense?
I love you.
don't get there. Yeah, this is a huge change because the board, the departments are used to having are using the data maybe not consistently, and we're kind of trying to pull in what departments have had to do in the past to keep themselves running. We're kind of trying to pull that back, and so that you are getting one voice, one piece of true financial information to the bottom line, as well as those budgets, okay? Which is going to take some time. I'm not saying we're going to be there in 2 months or 3 months. This first step will be a lot of learning for me, and we'll get it as close to possible. And then we're going to just keep improving upon it. So if we make a misstep, we'll come back and we'll go, oh, that didn't work. We're reassess, and we're gonna change it, and we're gonna move forward. Does that work?
Looking at that fund balance line,
Mm-hmm.
the 10 million,
Yep.
and then over at the right side, that's the total, 38.
Yep.
Basically, that 38 minus the 10 amounts to our levy, does it not? Or something close to that? Our levy is about 28 million in that area.
That's not it at all.
Yeah, the levy's different.
Okay.
The levy's gonna be, well, actually, if you go to the next page, actually page, which on this handout is page 19.
Mm-hmm.
So the next page on here is kind of the talking point. This is your revenue and expenses.
Okay.
So this is kind of showing, the first page was showing the actual balance sheet income statement. This is then kind of a different view of how your revenue and your expenses impact those fund balances. And so you can kind of see if you go to page 20. So in 2023, your net impact on general fund was you added 900,000 basically to your fund balance, which was reflected on the previous page, but in total, which nets out to your total fund balance of 10 million. Your levy, if you're looking for your levy numbers, it's probably going to be up in that tax line on that page 19, which is the statement of revenue and expenditures. If you read across, there's now, granted, I don't know exactly what's in the tax line, but in general, the tax line should be probably what you're taxing your local group. And then not all of it is levy. There are some what we call revenue neutral. You're getting the 28 million on levy, but some of it is coming in from other sources, from credits, ag credits, and different places like that. And that's what we call revenue neutral. So you're still getting the 28 million, but not all of it might be directly related to the levy.
Okay. Well,
But it's hard working on trying to project out on a budget without having that good data. So we really kind of need to get the audit. And then once we have a good audit baseline, we're going to use that to kind of just keep pushing forward where we're working from and then go from there. Okay.
If I can jump in on this.
Yep.
Point about the audit, I think what we've all been used to is we get an audit report once a year. It's usually 18 months to 24 months in arrears. Mildly interesting, but I mean, it's so long ago, it doesn't seem relevant, and that's the last we talk about it. Our audits have been relatively okay. I mean, nothing to speak of. There's a lot of notes in there about things to improve. What I think we're going to have now is an active referral to the audit during the year, what this means, and as opposed to a lot of the reports that you've been used to seeing maybe decades, which were cash reports. You're going to have a fuller picture of what we're doing, because it's not just what we happen to have in the bank. It's what do we owe, what's coming, what's going to go, what's the timing of all this, what's not cash. But, you know, you go back to 17, you've got assets and liabilities. That's different than what you've been seeing, and it matters. And, but it is a little complicated. It's a little more complete way of looking at it. It's really what we should be doing at our level here in this room when we talk about the fiscal health of the organization.
Yeah. And so it'll kind of include then, the fund balance policy once we generate it in a few months will be across the board for all the different funds and types. And then that'll also be your guidance when you have those conversations of what does this do to your fund balance? Are we getting below fund balance, above it? And that is just a typical government requirement from GASB that we have that on file, and for audit, it's required.
In your opinion on the gross fund dollars, are we is Polk County Polk County and the taxpayers and management, are we all in the envelope that's acceptable by
By standards, I don't have an answer for that yet.
Okay.
I don't have enough background to your revenues and expenses. We're seeing some things that even Avdo's still trying to work through.
Okay.
So we really are waiting for the auditors this time. We've got a lot better. Abdo has created a much better view of where we're at financially, and we'll get that with the audit. So that 24 audit's really going to be key for building that. And then also, as we're looking through budgets, we're seeing some budgeting that I don't know if it's necessarily a double count. So we're going to just kind of go through some of those things with departments too and make sure that we're not increasing numbers unintentionally. And then we will kind of look at where that lays, and then we'll kind of come back and Chuck and I'll start having conversations of what is best practice from past experience. We used 2.5 months of operating expenditures to determine what we needed to have in unassigned fund balance, not restricted, because restricted is committed or whatever, but really looking at it in that unassigned. But for county, I'm not familiar enough with your revenue flow and timing of the revenue flow to know whether that is an accurate, accurate enough to keep you flowing if the state shut down, for example, or you weren't getting your tax payments or something happened, and when your tax payments come in. So it'll kind of depend on where we want to set it. And you can set it. It's just that is a recommended baseline, 2 to 3 months from where I used to work.
Yeah.
Our audits have said
You're healthy.
we're healthy.
Yeah, I would say you're healthy. I just don't know what.
The downside of it is we don't know how healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Are we too healthy? And when you're holding on to other people's money, which is the reality of county government, collecting taxes from people, you can't have too much money. We're not a bank. And being able to know where we're going, what we're supposed to do, what affects our fiscal health does matter, and we should know that. That's why we're here. But it hasn't been as clear to make those kind of decisions. We just kind of ramble on, and so far we're okay. But I think there's no reason not to understand it much better.
Yeah, and we're I think I start meetings tomorrow with our project manager with Questica to start building the capital plan, because a lot of that also kind of turns into that capital plan of understanding each year, is this year expense wise a larger year because we're replacing networks, or we've got a mass amount of, well, you don't buy your vehicles, you lease your vehicles, but election, yeah, and that's going to change the expenses, but knowing what those ups and downs are, the ebbs and flows versus what the constant budget is. So we want to know what the constant budget is. This is what it's day to day. And then we want to know what are the ebbs and flows of, we've got this mass project this year. And then that is also sometimes why you carry a bigger fund balance, because you know you're going to have to replace offices or replace furniture or replace computers, that kind of timing. But so we're working on a capital plan as well, which will take a little more to get to. First focus is budget, but we want to start looking at a 10-year capital plan is what we're trying to build now as well. In addition to fixing all the other things and getting everything else under control. We'll get there.
Yeah. So which program did you use to run these? Is this under the new?
No, this is from the actual 23 audit.
Okay.
Yeah, these are actual pages out of your 23 audit. I'm still fighting against IFS. And getting information in I usually deal with an Excel sheet, so we'll get there. I'll get things mapped. I just have not stopped long enough to map out all of those things, but we'll get there. Just kind of trying to get some of the projects off the ground. So first year might be a little harder for me to tie out it specifically to the fund balances, but we'll get there. Or in the timing that Chuck needs it within the next couple of months. That's pretty short, but we'll get there.
This is quite a change, is it not?
Well,
No,
I
from the previous director and the new director.
everything has aligned so we can do this now.
Yes.
I can see a couple of decisions or choices coming still.
Mhm.
Mentioned IFS. She's already, I think it was day 3, she came and let me know that she was seeing limitations from IFS.
Yeah.
Um, the Questica rollout last week, the department heads, I have not had one call yet from a department head saying, this is nonsense. In fact, that one told me yesterday, I could see budgets being paperless from now on. Well, yeah, that's the whole idea. I've given her my 5-inch 3-ring binder of 2024 budget that, you know, I try to keep track of stuff, but you can attach things and explain things in Questica, so you can not only look at your own budget, but for some of us, she and I, can look at all the departments. What makes up this line account? It'll only get better as we get more familiar with it. And then, as she mentioned, the capital side of things, that's really where your future lies. But I think these choices that I'm referring to is, I don't, I've got in my mind a limit to our use of ABDO to this year. I haven't looked at next year. I can see some things that we would want to use them for, and now have a finance director that would like to see what they can do. They've been very helpful bringing staff along, because it's very hard to have staff make changes while they're doing work. It's this is one area that's very difficult. Somebody's got to help them with it. And the other side of it is, what other software upgrades should we have? We're trying to move IFS off the AS400 and into a Windows model, simply to make it more usable, but also so we can get rid of the AS400, which also means getting rid of PayMate, which is part of the transition to the Kronos payroll. By the way, as Andy mentioned at the Tri-County meeting yesterday, Tri-County is on PayMate, the AS400, IFS, all of that, so they're getting caught up in this and are seeing what they need to do to go forward, but we can't forget them in all of this. But whether we need another software for general ledger, you know, I go back to my concern historically about having multiple vendors that have to be managed then by finance director, an IT director, department head here, or administrator there, as opposed to maybe something that's more integrated that works together. But we're just going to have to do one thing at a time here.
Yep, one thing. So we'll get through the next few months. I think from my standpoint, and I did visit with some other, counties when I was at the conference. I'm used to it, where I really like the Questica is I can pull up Questica and I can see all of my lines and all of my budgets and actuals, and I can click on it. Whereas with IFS, the issue is I have to run a report to see what the balance is. And then if that report was run wrong, I have to go back in and rerun the report. And I can't necessarily dump to Excel. I dump a lot of data to Excel and I manipulate it. I can't always dump the data to Excel. Some of the reports dump, some don't. But the fact that I have to run a report and then I have to wait for it to run, then I have to go here and then I have to click, and then if it's not right and try to filter it is tedious. When you've come from a system where I can pull up my chart of accounts and I can click it, I can go to AP, I can go to who's been paid, because that is also one of the other issues. I literally have no visibility to who's been paid in what account code. So it's really hard to manage those pieces and moving parts and get them in the right place the first time, which is the goal. We want things put the first time. I don't want to have to do journal entries. It wastes time. There's, so those types of things are going to be longer term. The other big piece is not having a purchasing requisition system. And I'm not hearing a lot of counties using it from a state perspective and from school, because I was at Department of Ed and at the school. You had a purchasing requisition, even at the state. You did not buy anything without a purchase order. So that visibility to what's encumbered and sitting out there is a huge piece that we're missing when you're spending what you're spending every month. That's a lot of money to not have visibility to. And that I'm having a hard time wrap my head around that. You don't know what's still out there. I get that departments have their budget and they have the budget authority, but how do you keep track of how many things you've ordered, and how do I know at the end of the year what is due and what has not been paid? So that is a bigger concern of mine financially in managing the finances.
So keep in mind, some of the department heads have been keeping track of encumbered type of expenditures, future. They know.
Large purchases.
The finance does never know.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there's no, that's where it needs to be, frankly, if you can come up with a way of doing it, which we think is doable with Questic. That's flexible enough to do a lot of things. You just need to manage it that way. And then I think we see where future of IFS is after that. I think the use of Chronos probably is going to mean that anything HR payroll related is going to be. So we're not trying to integrate that because that's pretty robust. I think we're finding.
Yep.
But it does have to tie into our accounting.
Yep. So
One of the things that really upset me at East Grand Forks, the city, was the last 45 days of the year prior to 12/31, there was excessive spending because budgetarily they did a good job. Well, if we don't spend it, we won't get it next year. And I could see some of that going on at the county level. And it's only normal. I mean, the budget process is just a guesstimation of future expenses, but the reality should be those expenses for the year should be tabularized, actual and accounts payable. Let's say October 31st or November 30th or something like that. So the county doesn't end up doing like the previous board and it was sometimes, depending on the department, it was 24, 26% of their budget. And that's ridiculous. I mean, yes, 3 to 5% is somewhat tolerable, but anything over 10, there needs to be a reason why. And second, maybe you need to be increasing and justifying your budget a little bit better.
Yep. So I have some different opinion or strong opinions one way or the other on some of those things, and we'll get there.
Yeah.
Of how
We
how it
can't
should be
speak
run.
for East Grand Forks.
But in terms of that we shouldn't spend the budget just because we have budget.
Yeah.
Right.
If you don't need it, it waits. And we don't carry it over. It's a new year. We reassess, and if it needs to be in there, then we get it in there. But I'm not an advocate of spending it down in the 9th hour. No.
Yeah.
Never have been.
Yeah.
But without that purchasing oversight,
No.
I don't know where we're at.
So a key to that is to actually be able to
See it.
actively manage it from
Yep.
an executive level, not just the department head. And
Yeah.
department heads here, I think, have been pretty responsible. They'll come in, but I know, and we've done it with the board from time to time. You can see things coming in the next year's budget. Hey, we got the money now. Let's do it now instead of budget for it next year.
Yep.
And we do generally, I think, almost always to every department come in under budget because they are concerned about going over budget. Although, you know, nobody really knows what the penalty is for going over.
Yeah, and then that's where we typically we would bring back we should bring back a final budget at when we get to that 6 to 9 month mark of reassessing where we're at, and then we would do a revised final budget, and then that's kind of where we project out where we're at. It's going to be really hard to do with that without that visibility to those outstanding purchases, because it's hard to look at where you're at in the budget if you don't know what else is out there.
Yep.
So that is going to be a limitation, but that is part of the best practice is, and I think we used to do 3. We did a adopted, a revised in the middle of the year, and a final. Just kind of gut check and to bring back those things that got added to make sure that we got them in there after board approved them. So,
Okay. Any
Take a little
other
bit.
questions, comments?
I learned a lot today.
okay.
Again, I love you.
Oh, no, just wait. Thank you, but wait.
That'll go viral.
Yeah. All right. Have a good day.
Thank you. Chuck, anything else?
Well, we have not heard from the sheriff, but
able to attend today's.
okay. So I think events are probably preventing that. I've got 2026 budget update. You've got a pretty good idea here from Stacy where we're at. As I said, we did roll out the Questa cut to the department heads, and aside from just kind of getting used to the format and tabs and that kind of thing, it's pretty straightforward. And I think our next objective between Stacy and I is to how do we, when we have our meeting with each department in the August 7th, August 8th, Gary and Joan attend that. How does it work managing it up on the screen? And I'm sure we'll have that in order by then. I think that's kind of coming along. We have a lot that we're learning as we go because obviously each department that filters into an overall budget where the levy is. Generally, I've never really known that until we get into September anyway, but I think for my purposes, my administrative meetings with the department heads and it's August 7th and 8th, glean what the important issues are for them going into 2026. And right now, I'm not hearing anything out of the norm. I'm not hearing a lot of additional personnel. I'm not hearing big capital expenses. I think we've gotten through a lot of our building improvements. We probably have some work in highway, but Rich does a pretty good job of scheduling those things out. And then solid waste where we're at on things there, but that's kind of a non-levy thing, so acting as an enterprise, it kind of is less important at the beginning of the year, but we still have it go through that same process and evaluate it here with you. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It's very busy. I sit in on so many Teams and Zoom meetings right now between Questica, either specifically for us or these work groups that are kind of, I want to say nationally, but they're Canadian and American. And when we've got different work groups on the with ABDO, I've got the ABDO updates with myself and now Stacy. We got the UKG meeting, so about half my calendar is taken up with these various online meetings, and people are busy. We're moving along.
Okay.
So
Anything else?
I will have I've got Abdo scheduled for an update at next week's meeting, and see where if I got anything. Well, Marshall Polk, if we're waiting 2 weeks, there's no pressure there. So
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
We're good.
Sam, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. It's been